there's plenty of people who are playing with numbers and wearables and things like that. I'm learning more and more those things are valuable, but really what matters is, do you connect with the people that you are trusting your health, your most vital resource? Do those people truly care about you? And I think if people sense that they don't, I'm not sure that they're going to get a lot better, because there's something instilled that connects people wanting to do well and succeeding with being able to connect with the people that are taken care of. It's kind of spiritual, but like, you can't quantify it. And I think that's the tough part in a world where everything is data, which I totally believe is necessary. There's an intangible aspect of what we have and what we're creating that's powerful.
Awesome. I'm live with Dr. Ryan Greene, co-founder and chief medical director of Monarch Athletic Club. It's awesome to have you here, Dr. Ryan.
Thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to get into what y'all are doing. It's a really interesting concept in the kind of not just gym, but total performance space, I would say. You guys have a very comprehensive location in West Hollywood, and now are opening in Brentwood, where you don't just do personal training and PT, but you're a functional doc. You also get to see your labs and the whole 9 yards when it comes to total performance and health optimization. So I think it's a very innovative and at the forefront, and I'm excited to sort of learn about how y'all got started and what you're focused on right now. Maybe for those out there that haven't heard of Monarch or met yourself yet, can you give a little background and introduction to what y'all are building?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we wanted to do with Monarch was create a one-stop shop. And there's a couple concepts that are similar to us in terms of the services that are offered. But where we differ is, I did not want us to be a fee for service model, meaning the more that you wanted, the more that it costs. We wanted it to be one flat fee, and then everything that you could have wanted was available for you. So we created a model that allows a member, patient, whatever you want to call them, to have unlimited access to concierge preventive medicine, personal training, physical therapy, and nutrition. And the reason we did that is because when I was in training, I was a surgical resident. One of the things that I felt like I wasn't actually able to help people achieve was a higher quality of life, a higher quality of health. I was fixing them for whatever issue brought them to the hospital, but I wasn't really doing anything that was preventing them from coming back. So the origin story is, when I was a fellow at Mayo Clinic, I went to Mall of America one weekend, and when I was there, I was just like, this place is insane. It's definitely kitschy, so to speak, but people go there because they can park their car, and then they have food, shopping, lodging, water parks, everything that you could want in terms of an experience. And I just said, why don't we do that with health? So that's what we created, but we made it feel a little bit more elevated, a little higher end. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it's everything that your body needs to support a high quality, long life. Anthony from Fit Insider, they published an article earlier this week talking about the need to focus on the comprehensive human being in terms of wellness. And up until recently, we've been really good at saying, like, you got to do this exercise, you got to do this fitness class. But we haven't really paid attention to the medical aspect, the metabolic aspect, the mindfulness, things like that. So what I wanted to do was say, whoever you are, wherever you're coming from, whatever you're showing up with, it doesn't matter. The methodology, the system is pretty much the same in terms of what you need to do to allow your body to thrive. And that's what we offer our members, except it's in one place. And you have a multidisciplinary team that's helping you and can communicate in real time. So there's nothing lost between providers, whatever facility that you're going to, everything's kept in one space. And the other component that we are proud of, that I don't think was necessarily intentional, is each location is designed to be smaller, between 150 to 300 members, because that community component is definitely important. And if you look at populations that I guess we've kind of modeled ourselves off of in terms of like blue zones and things like that, one of the things that those entities have in common is their community. There are people that are born, live, and then their future offspring tend to stay in that space, because community is super important and it's an intangible. And although we're more connected than we've ever been, technically, I think we're also more isolated than we've ever been, because you don't actually have to do anything to see anyone or communicate. And so, one of the nice things about the Monarch Club idea is you have that level of interaction with people that are taking care of you, whether it's physicians, physical therapists, trainers, nutritionists, where you get to know them and they get to know you as like human beings. And that's something that I think is lost and is kind of transactional, especially in the wellness space, which is like, you could go to a really high end boutique fitness class and you may know the trainer's name because you've taken their class, but they probably don't know you because they have a class of 50 or 60 people and it's constantly changing. So we've solved that, because people, you see the same people, you have the same staff. And I think when people have the ability to develop connection, they tend to be more vulnerable and they're more willing to talk about the things that are or are not working with their health program. And that's the beauty of the Monarch model. As we grow and expand, the cool part is your program. So if you were a member, is ultra personalized, it's specific for you. But the way we've built the system is that the training team just executes your program. So as you travel and go to different Monarch clubs, the feel will be different because it's in a different community, but the bones, the foundation is the same. So you have that level of consistency and ultimately the opportunity to be compliant, which has been devoid of presence, so to speak, in the current wellness community, because your trainer, your health staff is kind of tied to where you live. And if you travel and go anywhere else, they're not with you. So we kind of took that Soho House idea, which is like the foundation similar no matter where you are in the world, which increases your value. And in our opinion, the most valuable entity, resource, thing that anyone could have is health. It's the great equalizer amongst all humanity. If you don't have it, there's no amount of money that you can spend to get it. You need to be able to access the foundational elements of longevity, which in our opinion are sleep, movement, metabolic health, nutrition, and then and community, as I mentioned. So we've created an environment that offers all those things, just feels like a higher end wellness club.
So many great jumping off points there in terms of how you got started with the Mall of America. It's something I've thought about a lot as I've been in and around the wellness space and have seen physical retail completely transform in recent years. You go to a place like Westfield Shopping Mall in Century City, and you have Equinox, and you have Next Health, and you have a Peloton store and Sweet Green, and the list goes on in terms of how people are looking for well-being. But you all have decided to integrate it all. Um, and that adds some operational efficiencies, I would imagine, and people don't have to go to separate locations, and it kind of keeps the data contained so different parts of the system can talk to one another.
Correct. And so, for instance, like when we were growing up, malls were like, it was, you know, Auntie Anne's Panda Express. Now you can go to a mall and you have Sweet Green, like all those things. But your Sweet Green team isn't talking to the Equinox team. The Next Health team isn't talking to, the Sweet Green and Equinox team. They're in close proximity, which is great. It's definitely a step in the right direction. We've just taken it a step further. And so, everyone who's participating in the end user or the members' outcomes is intimately aware of everything else that is going on. And in our opinion, and we've seen with 3 years of data, that people, as long as they show up, they tend to do well, because it's ultra convenient, it's ultra personalized, and health can seem complicated. And if you, as someone who doesn't have the same medical education as I do, is trying to digest and assimilate and create a program with all this data you're being offered, a lot of people don't know what to do. So they end up just doing what they've always done and they stay where they've always been, which is usually kind of an average, mediocre level of health.
Yes, and something you have mentioned is it is a premium experience. The price tag is about over $1,000 a month.
1,999. Yeah.
How did you come up with the pricing and the business model? Do you envision it coming down? Do you envision it going up? as you add other services or layer in other services in there. I think you've also spoken to me about the mind and the mental component that you're interested in eventually integrating. How do you think about the business model, pricing, all of that?
Yeah, so it's super interesting. So I have partners who are successful in the hospitality space that have a far greater business mind than I do. So they help develop the model. But what we were looking at was essentially is what's our demographic here in Los Angeles? People that have a gym membership, usually Equinox. They use personal training. They may use boutique fitness. Probably have a concierge physician or use something like Next Health, One Medical. In totality, what people are spending on health related endeavors on a monthly basis is usually at least $1,000, probably more, depending on if you do massage and acupuncture and things like that, supplementation, food prep. So the 9.99 on the surface seems like a lot, but in actuality, it's a far greater value than what people are currently spending. It's just in multiple different buckets. Does that make sense? So instead of death by a thousand cuts, we've just said like this is the fee, everything's included. You don't have to pay extra for anything other than, additional IVs that aren't built into the membership. And then some of the services that we're rolling out moving forward, and we can get into it, like Monarch Mind and the mental health aspect. Some of those things will be added cost, but all the foundational elements, medicine, blood work, nutrition, training, physical therapy, all included, unlimited, no extra cost. And so, like in LA, a personal trainer, a good one is probably $130, $150 an hour. If you use them 2 or 3 times a week, you're probably spending the same that you'd be spending at a Monarch club, but you don't have a physician, you're not getting blood work, you don't have a nutritionist. If you get hurt, you don't have access to a physical therapist. So in actuality, the 9.99 is it's just a psychological thing where people aren't used to seeing that type of number for health, but in actuality, they're probably spending more. So to answer your second question, what do we do in different markets? Well, the only reason we have to charge that here is because of rent, overhead, things like that. We could absolutely do this model with our labor model in other markets. And if the rent isn't what we pay here in LA, we can absolutely charge a lower price point, which will be probably more, consistent with what Equinox and other places, Lifetime Fitness charge in other markets. It may be slightly higher, but it won't be an outlandish delta like $1,000 when people where I grew up in Chicago, Lifetime Fitness is 180. Like that probably wouldn't work because people aren't used to, spending quote unquote that much money on their health. But truthfully, what drives our price point is overhead and cost of labor, which in other markets, other than LA, is not as significant.
Yeah, I geek out personally, being at the intersection of fintech and financial services and the wellness space on how people value their health and how much they spend on it on a monthly basis and what they actually consider a health purchase because, food is a health purchase. And that's something that we consistently spend on weekly, going to the grocery store, going out to eat. Um, so I find it fascinating. And then as, the healthcare part comes into the equation as well, the health system is like, how much are we paying for our healthcare, whether our company's funding it or not? And then what is actually included in the health insurance spend. So, love how you're breaking it down. A nice gym membership at one of those premium clubs like cost $200 to $300, and then if you do want to do personal training 2 times a week, that's, let's just say, $300 to $400 a month, and then you consider the functional health stuff and the labs. When it comes to blood work and the personalized medicine, what are you learning from your clientele? What kind of things are you seeing in the data, and what are they then optimizing with and for? Is it as simple as move more, eat more vegetables, sleep better, or is there like more, voodoo, or not voodoo, but like deeper science and supplementation and even prescription medicine and drugs that you are giving these patients in order to get them into better balance?
It's funny because I was thinking about this the other day. Because I was like, 9 times out of 10, if someone comes in, male or female, I will be able to guess at this point what are their goals, what do they want to achieve, and what do they look like in terms of lifestyle and metabolic health. Like I'm it's so
Before
consistent
you see
across
their
the
labs?
before I see them. Like I could guess, and 9 times out of 10, I'm spot on because it's like it's pervasive what's happening amongst our population. So let me just give you a scenario. Most people come in, they want to lose weight, build muscle, have more energy. That's probably like the top three most common goals that our clientele wants, which is great because 60, 70% of the US is overweight or obese. Most people don't get enough sleep, so they're tired and they take, too many caffeine or energy based supplements. So, it's pretty consistent if you look at our American population. But those are the primary goals. And then when we run through just a simple our onboarding process, every member has to meet with the medical team twice to do kind of an intake, medical history, goal setting, body comp. We draw blood work, and then we go over all those pieces of data once the labs are available. And almost everyone has insufficient sleep hygiene, meaning or inappropriate sleep hygiene. They're not getting enough sleep. They're not getting good quality sleep. Most people don't drink enough water. World Health Organization minimum rec for women is 2.7 liters a day. Men is 3.7 liters a day. Most people are woefully short of that. Most people don't get enough exercise on a weekly basis, which again is already a validated metric. 150 minutes of moderate intensity or more activity on a weekly basis, including at least 2 days of resistance training. And if you look at our data across the board, most people come in 3 times a week. So like they're not even hitting that minimum movement standard. And then from the metabolic standpoint, most people have um, suboptimal vitamin D. Thyroid function tends to be sluggish. Hormone health is woefully inadequate for both males and females, testosterone and DHEA. And then from a cardiovascular standpoint, most people have high cholesterol, which I'm not as much worried about. But there's a newer metric that we can look at called apolipoprotein B, which is much more of like a sensitive real time risk factor for actual development of cardiovascular disease. And I would say most people have elevated ApoB, at least, in the population we've seen. So literally getting people to sleep more, drink more water, exercise sufficiently, and then optimize those basic areas of metabolic health: thyroid, which is metabolism; vitamin D, which has 200 plus known functions in the body now, including circadian rhythm. So there's a sleep correlation. Hormone health and hormones. Everyone thinks about testosterone and things like that for bodybuilding. Testosterone is a neurosteroid. It feeds back and impacts how we think, how we feel, the energy we have, our mood. Dr. Mark Gordon's done a ton of work helping people deal with depression, anxiety, PTSD just by regulating their hormones. And I'm seeing so many people come in with just suboptimal physiologic baseline. It's no wonder that we're not making progress. And in a world where there's more health tech, there's more fitness concepts than ever before. And I think we're missing the point, which is like we're not getting healthier. So we need to create a model where someone can come in and just have everything they need taken care of in one spot. And that's part of the work. And it's not even frustrating. It's just like eye opening that so many people are struggling with the same things and they don't know it. And part of the reason why they don't know it is everyone just assumes this is how life is. But we have all succumbed to like the current day American lifestyle disease syndrome, which is just suppressing our vitality and our ability to truly live a high quality and energetic existence. And I don't think it's that hard. People that have been with us for a year plus would tell you, all aspects of their life are getting better just by sticking with this program. And it's really not that complex. Um, and it doesn't require, a ton of commitment other than just showing up. So it's been pretty
Mm,
cool.
yeah. Yeah, it's you know, you don't have to convince me that it's that living in that way where you're moving the right amount, where you're spending the right amount of time away from work, and with your loved ones, with your community, eating the right things, sleeping. It's just night and day with how you can feel energy wise, and also how it can impact your sort of life life satisfaction and mental health and well-being. So I'm totally bought in. When it comes to behavior change, I'm curious what you're seeing is, as I look at the landscape of wellness, I see a lot of brands that are focused on like lifestyle coaching. Here's a sleep coach, here's someone to tell you what to eat, here's someone to tell you how to move. But then again, there's still aligning our intentions with our behavior is a totally different story. And I'm curious, someone in your position, as you have all these patients or members coming in, how do you see people making behavior change? What are the things that actually move the needle in terms of someone putting one foot in front of the other and making those lifestyle changes in order to look better, feel better, all that?
Yeah. I think two things happen for someone that truly will shift their dedication and commitment to making that change that you were discussing. One is a catastrophic health condition, either in themselves or in a loved one. Something happens that shocks them so deeply that they say, "Oh, I can't keep doing this. I'm going to change." Does that make sense? Like cancer, heart attack, something like that. We obviously don't want that to happen to everyone, and we don't want that to be the cause of everyone making healthy improvement. So the other thought is money, investment, incentive. So sometimes it's a combination of the two where people are just like, I've tried everything else. I tried to do it the easy way, the cheaper way. It hasn't worked. So I'm ready to actually commit and go all in. And because I'm spending $1,000 a month, like I'm going to show up. I'm going to do this. Um, so that's something that we've seen from the individual side. One of the unique things about our model is because we're a medical facility by design with amenities and services underneath that medical umbrella, we have a pathway to tap into insurance reimbursement, which for some of our members, if they're using more physical therapy or medical services, that monthly membership can definitely decrease in terms of what they're actually paying once they get their out of network super bills dialed in. So that's an area that we're definitely excited to continue to explore and expand because no one else is doing that in terms of the insurance reimbursement pathway, and that's a multi-trillion-dollar market in the insurance space that we have access to. Um, but that's an aside. That's a longer conversation. Um, the third part is I think people once they come in and they see that every person there on our team, doesn't matter the specialty, is committed to getting to know you as an individual and helping you at any cost achieve the goals that you want to achieve. I think that level of community support and connection cannot be understated. And it's something that is difficult to replicate, especially if you kind of reduce your health program to this guy's my sleep guy, this guy's my whatever, and they're not communicating. We have a vested interest in everyone getting better because it reflects on us as a multidisciplinary, Monarch team. And again, because we have a smaller membership number per location by design, we get invested in people doing well. There's an emotional connection. And we've lost that in the health space, which used to be there. 100 years ago, your physician, your dentist, whatever, lived in your neighborhood. They were your neighbor. You saw them out and about. Nowadays, that doesn't happen. But we've brought that back. And that includes training, all aspects. So because people develop real relationships and real connection, both sides want to do well so that we can share in that joy and celebration of people achieving goals together. And that's rare. And I'm telling you, man, like I'm learning a lot about health, and there's plenty of people who are playing with numbers and wearables and things like that. But I'm learning more and more those things are valuable. But really, what matters is do you connect with the people that you are trusting your health, your most vital resource? Do those people truly care about you? And I think if people sense that they don't, I'm not sure that they're going to get a lot better because there's something instilled that connects people wanting to do well and succeeding with being able to connect with the people that are taking care of them. So that's kind of like it's kind of spiritual, but like so we've had some people make incredible, and it's just you can't quantify it. And I think that's the tough part in a world where everything is data. which I totally believe is necessary, there's an intangible aspect of what we have and what we're creating, um, that's powerful.
Yeah, I think we've all had people in our lives, friends, family, people at our companies who we've seen from, struggling with their health, and we've seen that they can use some level of support. That sounds very similar to what Monarch is providing, that we as passionate people about health can try to motivate them and try to support them and try to endorse it. But at the end of the day, like, we're not necessarily like you are, but I'm not necessarily like a health coach, and I don't have the bandwidth and time, and they don't necessarily expect or want me to like be on top of them. But once you start investing that type of in that experience there, and you have these folks that are super invested in your health and your well-being, and you guys are also financially incentivized, because if someone isn't getting better, they're just going to stop, and they're gonna leave as your member and customer. So totally get that. I think I've also heard you talk about financial rewards and discounts on membership. How do you think about financial incentives in order to motivate people to be healthy? There's these like apps now that where you upload your wearable data in order to get discounts, and I'm curious how you think about all of that.
Yeah, I think it's all moving in the right direction. I think from our end, we've created this idea called Monarch Healthy Benefits, which is a program we'll roll out with our Brentwood launch, which is essentially like an opt-in offering where we understand like our margin and where the minimum amount of monthly revenue coming in that we can afford to uh, take in, so to speak, to survive, and what our cushion is in terms of like the monthly memberships. And one of my thoughts was we can basically create our own performance based, program insurance, so to speak, concept where you as a member have the opportunity to opt into this healthy rewards program, which basically says, all right, John, if you track your sleep and share it with us and get 7 to 8 hours, you get a certain amount of money off your membership for the next quarter. If you drink enough water, if you maintain, minimal risk for diabetes, heart disease, stuff that's all validated, stuff that's all measurable, stuff that we're going to measure anyway, why not tie some sort of incentive to it to kind of gamify it and say, hey, like, as long as you come in and do these things that we ask, that we know as a side benefit will help you feel better, look better, have more energy, etc., your reward is you pay a lower monthly membership rate. It's not anything that's going to compromise the business, but ultimately for us, it's our offering to you, which says stick with us, keep doing what you're doing within these parameters, and we know that you will elevate your overall, quality of life and level of health. So that's something that we're just doing because I believe it'll work, and I think I kind of took the ideas from like the safe driver discount for car insurance. Like you don't get in an accident, you pay a lower rate. For us, it's like you do these basic health tenets that we know are the foundational elements of longevity, and we will make you or offer you a lower monthly membership rate. So it's almost like we're putting skin in the game, saying we know that this will work, and if you do it, we will reward you. And I think people tend to like getting rewarded. So that's our version. But I think that hopefully that will expand into corporations and eventually the insurance providers, because ultimately if we get people healthier across the spectrum that we talked about, cost goes down across the board. Everyone wins. You just have to get people to see that. And so I think for us, it's continuing to open more locations, collect more data, and then ultimately we'll have the ability to present what we offer to whomever, wherever, any corporation or insurance provider, any benefit provider, and say, hey, as long as someone works with the Monarch system, whether that's in person or virtual, they will probably become a healthy, low risk, low liability individual for you, better employee, lower cost for insurance. So there's a lot of things that we can do moving down the road.
Speaking of the maybe double clicking on part of the business model or the gym business model in general, is like you get a ton of people to pay their membership, and then you kind of bet that most of them won't show up, because if they did, you'd have a capacity issue. And with the model that you currently have, where it's like $9.99, unlimited PT, unlimited personal training, what happens if you over index on the way that people show up and engage, or you under index, and then all of a sudden you have all these people coming in every single day, and you're like at capacity and you can't service them. Like, how do you think about those two things?
Yeah. So I mean, we check on a weekly basis usage frequency, booking rates from the training standpoint, because our trainers are employees. You know, they're salaried, so like they're going to be there no matter what. So we're constantly looking at how many sessions are being used, how often are the trainers being booked. If we're seeing more non-use than actual use, then that's something where we have to think about, are we over labored, or if we're at 100% capacity, do we need to bring on more staff? And ultimately, if more people are getting booked more often, that's a good thing. That means we can hire more staff. And in 3 years, truthfully, like I said, the average usage per week is 2.8 sessions. Even though they have unlimited access, it's like there's something in our psyche about exercising 3 times a week that is like ingrained. I have no idea where it's come from, but in 3 years, it has not budged from 2.8 times per week. So, at some point, if people all of a sudden decide, yeah, I'm going to start going 6 days a week, we are going to have to, you know, look at our labor model a little bit and figure out where we can improve. But right now we have a like a trainer or physical therapist to member ratio that we kind of just guessed at, truthfully, and it's held out in terms of how many members do we need before we bring on a new staff member, and it's worked. So it may not work in all markets, we'll have to figure it out, but so far for West Hollywood and Brentwood, it looks like it's going to pan out. But yeah, we're monitoring those KPIs on a weekly basis just to make sure, and also like the subjective response from members. If they're saying like, hey, we want to try to get sessions but there's nothing available, that's a piece of added value. And again, with a small community, you hear that feedback very quickly. So those are things that we look at as well.
And just to get an idea, how many members are at the West Hollywood location, and then how many people on your staff?
Yeah, so we have 170 members. That's our cap for now at West Hollywood. We have 30 people on a waiting list, and we have uh, about 17 staff members. So it's like a 10-to-1 ratio. And that includes physical therapists, because our physical therapists are also CSCS certified strength and conditioning specialists. So they wear multiple hats. So that's been valuable. And that staff also includes front of house, but there's only a few of those. And for Brentwood, we have 62 members currently committed. We're opening in a couple weeks, and we have 230 people on a wait list just waiting to see what the space looks like before they commit. We'll probably cap our membership there around 250 people. So, within a few months, I think we'll get close to that cap, just because of the market and the fact that there's just not a lot in that area.
I would imagine with the type of members you're attracting, they're also probably traveling a ton for work. So that's also part of them not being in there all the time.
Partially, and that's part of the reason why we want to scale up in terms of placing these strategically in other markets that kind of capture the commonly traveled paths of a lot of our members: New York, Miami, Chicago, so that now your membership has even more value, because now your Monarch program can be executed in any of these places that you're going. And that's the one area definitely of weakness, which is like people are paying a premium. And if they travel, we do virtual sessions very often, but it's not the same. It's not the same level of experience. So we would like to, you know, continue to expand and plant our flag as fast as we are able, so that we can offer our services in more locations.
Speaking of, there's markets that you're not in yet, and we have members and benefits recipients in our community sort of all over. I'm curious, based off of your own experience experimenting with your health, the medical and clinical side of what you do, how you personally think about wellness, and what do you make sure you do? What do you totally avoid? And how can others that don't have a Monarch in their neighborhood sort of think through the health journey?
Yeah, that's a good question. First, shameless plug: we have Monarch Virtual that will be rolling out in 2025. towards the end of 2023, which will allow people to have virtual access training program, access to a nutritionist, the blood work, not to, not as much of the white glove one-on-one experience, but definitely something that they can execute no matter where they are. And depending on how much oversight they want, there's various levels of cost, but definitely a step in the direction to bridge the gap between where we physically are and people who want to get better, which is everywhere. So that's coming. So you can keep an eye on that on our website or our social channels. For me personally, and things that I tell every single patient, the way I look at health is as follows in terms of order of importance: sleep, hydration, nutrition, metabolic health, movement, and then woven through all those things is spirituality, which I don't, it means nothing to me what you believe in, but if people don't believe in something and aren't passionate about something, I don't know if a lot of these health interventions are going to be as effective as they can be. And so, that's something that we can talk about later or on a separate chat about like that mind aspect. But that for me has been a very, very
Can we
powerful
double click into
component.
that
But
as you say that? What does that look like for you? How have you developed that sort of mental or spiritual practice?
yeah, so to be honest, it was out here people are a little bit more progressive in terms of things that they're willing to try, think about, learn about. So I personally was introduced to the plant-based medicine space 5 or 6 years ago. I found it on my own, just dealing with some trauma that I experienced, and happened to be, Southern California. Like there's people that are very open-minded, and it resonated with me, and it's something that I've now kind of created an avenue from a professional standpoint researching, which is like the impact of psilocybin on people with anxiety, depression, PTSD, which is a lot of people. You don't have to be a combat veteran or an athlete to experience those things, but from the treatment standpoint, we are seeing that things such as ketamine and psilocybin are becoming very valuable. And so, for me, my spiritual practice is not only utilizing those things in the manner in which they were intended. And if you're interested in learning more, Michael Pollan's book, How to Change Your Mind, and the Netflix series is an incredible, dive into that. But um, I also work with therapists. I take time for myself every week to speak with them because I have a lot of stuff going on, and it's great for me to be able to work with people that can help me understand why I'm feeling what I'm feeling and how to navigate through that. I think we've created a world or a bubble around mental health, which is one previously stigmatized. Now that's opening up, but we're still not looking at mental health and its connection with physical health. They cannot be treated separately. Your mind and your body are interconnected. So I hope we don't continue to kind of like isolate mental health as its own thing, which leads me into what I do, because I know my mental health is not strong if I'm not intentionally taking time for myself, you know, doing the things that I enjoy, that I'm passionate about, not getting enough sleep on a nightly basis, not drinking enough water. I'm whole food plant based in terms of how I eat, so I don't really eat any processed foods. I'm not a huge meat guy, just for personal and some environmental reasons. And then from a metabolic standpoint, I check my labs regularly. I make sure that my hormone levels are optimized, including vitamin D. I personally have like a liver enzyme issue just because I think I work out a little too hard too often. And I also, some of my like pre-workout supplements are probably not the purest. So that's an area that I'm working on. And I also noticed I had really low DHEA and testosterone, like stress, lack of sleep through residency, probably overtraining and under eating, just because exercise for me is like such a mental health thing. I noticed that my hormone levels were starting to decrease, which impacted a lot of things: my mood, my energy, libido. So that's an area that I'm personally working on, is optimizing my DHEA and testosterone naturally via the DHEA pathway. And then movement, I
Doc, what's
I make a
DHEA?
commitment.
Sorry.
Yeah, okay. So DHEA is an adrenal hormone, and it's associated with the stress response, amongst other things. but people can look at DHEA to determine kind of how like your adrenal glands are functioning. If you have super high DHEA, you're probably experiencing acute high level stress. If your levels are suboptimal or low, probably associated with chronic stress, fatigue, burnout. Some people use adrenal fatigue. It's not. I think it's real. It's just not like a standard medical diagnosis quite yet. But DHEA is also a direct precursor to testosterone. So DHEA gets converted into androstenedione, which then becomes testosterone. So if people have suboptimal testosterone, you should look at DHEA, because if that level is also suboptimal, then theoretically, by correcting that, helping your adrenal glands, you should be able to see healthier levels of testosterone. That's the thought, and it usually works. So for me, both my DHEA and test were low, so I'm working with DHEA, and I've noticed an increase in mood, energy, libido, things like that. So I haven't retested,
Do
so
you
I'll let
supplement
you
with
guys know
that?
what that looks like. Yeah, yeah, you can get it. I used Life Force.
Oh, nice.
It's
Is it? Are you
yeah, so
injecting it?
they're high.
No,
Nope, it's
it's a
capsule.
capsule.
It's a capsule.
Got it.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, that's my metabolic space, and then movement. I make sure I exercise every day. I do something. It's not necessarily like hit training every day, but waking up, one of the first things I do is, I go outside as the sun's rising, I drink my water, get grounded, and then I do my movement practice, because that just gets my mind right. It's like meditation for me before I start with my day. And it, again, doesn't need to be the hardest workout I've ever done. Sometimes it's running on the beach. Sometimes it's not really yoga in the morning. It's too slow for me, but it's usually like something that gets the sweat going a little bit, gets my heart racing, and then I tackle the day. Um, so that's pretty much it for me. Like if you know me personally, people would tell you that my life seems pretty boring, seems pretty regimented, but
The boring stuff works.
everything in the everything in the body is rhythmic. Everything is, it's circadian rhythm. It's the core of what we are. So the more that you can get in some sort of a rhythm, the better your body will become. And that's the same thing we're doing with Monarch, which is like we're encouraging people to develop a rhythm, to plan in advance, like when they're going to move, when they're going to do their recovery, what they're going to eat, like being intentional around that. So we're that's kind of what we're mimicking. And I wouldn't tell anyone to do something that I wouldn't do, like 100%. So, I think that's developed a level of trust in our members.
I think we're gonna have to do a round two because there's so much more I want to dive into. Uh, Quick question on the plant-based whole food side. Uh, in a lot of worlds, animal protein meat is having sort of this renaissance. I think a lot of people went plant-based, maybe didn't do it the right way. Um, how do you think you're sort of you're at the forefront of the gym and physical health and wellness world and strength building? How do you think about protein intake being on a mostly plant-based whole foods diet? Are you eating a lot of beans and legumes?
Yeah, it's tough. So I'm not anti-meat by any means. Let me just, before people come after me. I just I don't trust a lot of the quality that is reported, or that people can get. I don't remember, you remember the Bel Campo situation? Brutal, brutal, right? People that don't know, super organic, grass-fed, grass-finished entity that had a rogue employee that started getting meat from elsewhere because demand was so high, and people found out, and it's like it crushes people's trust in, like, where am I getting my food from? Is it actually what they say it is in terms of quality? So on the animal protein side, I think if you can find high quality providers, I'm totally okay with it. My partner's restaurants have A5 grade Wagyu. Like if I go, I'll probably have a couple pieces of that because super high grade quality meat. But for the most part, for people that are plant based, it's a volume issue, because healthy food, plant based food, is nutrient dense but calorie poor. So you need to eat more volume. And people, just like with physical training, your gut gets accustomed to what you've been putting in. So most people probably eat around the same quantity, around the same time a day. And if you are trying to build muscle, burn fat, whatever you're doing, you may need to eat more volume. And for a while, that's very uncomfortable for people, because their mind tells them there's no way that eating this volume is going to help you lose weight. But in actuality, it's one of those things that you have to train your gut like you train your skeletal muscle system. And so for plant-based folks, volume tends to be the hardest issue, both for calories as well as some of the macronutrients, proteins, and things like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, that's a helpful way to think about it. Ryan, do you have a couple minutes for a quick rapid fire just so people can learn a little bit more about who you are? And then from there, I'd love to wrap up.
Sure. Yeah, let's do
Let's
it.
do it. Awesome. A book you've recommended the most, reread, or has left a lasting impact on you?
The Surrender Experiment by Mickey Singer, the same guy who wrote Untethered Soul. Surrender Experiment's like his life story.
Mm,
One of the best books I've ever read. Anyone who's listening, you should read it. It's all about just understanding that life will give you everything you need exactly when you need it. So just get out of your own way and things get better.
mm. Favorite product at Trader Joe's or CPG product that you always like to have stocked in your pantry?
Hummus, Kava hummus. It's not at Trader Joe's. You can get it at Whole Foods, but there's also a restaurant. Best hummus I've ever had. I'm a hummus fiend.
Mm. Purchase under $200 that you've made in the last 6 months that's added the most value to your life.
Hmm, that's a good question. Under $200.
We could take
Plants,
it up. We could
plants.
take it up a
No,
little bit because of the
plants.
yeah. All right.
No, I've never been. I just moved into a new apartment. Finally got my own space, and plants have been something that have been really important in terms of like giving the space some
Oh
life,
yeah.
and it's something I'd never had done before.
What's your signature dish or favorite thing to cook?
I don't cook a lot, so that's a tough one. Can we
Yeah.
can we audible that one out for a different
Yeah, for
question?
sure. What's one thing you're grateful for today?
Opportunities such as this to be able to share what we're doing. Um, so yeah, like truthfully, having people like you, like the fact, I think all the time, if I was to look at my life 10 years ago and be like, would I be here in California on a podcast talking about something that I helped create? Like never in a million years. So I'm just so grateful for every opportunity to be able to one impact people and also talk about it because I really do believe we have something that can help a lot of people.
Mm. Yeah, I'm happy to share your wealth of knowledge. Best piece of advice you've ever received?
Everything happens for your greater good.
Mm.
Everything happens for your greater good.
Who do you look up to and why?
Hmm. Um, I the first person I think of is Phil Knight with
Mm.
Nike. Because one of his books, Shoe Dog, is probably the second book that I would recommend to everyone. And for me, it's just the understanding of like the guy had an idea and he was passionate about it, and he took his passion and his idea and didn't let anything stop him, and went from selling shoes out of the back of his car to building Nike. And for me, it's one of those things where like if he can do it, anyone can do it, which encourages me to keep moving even through the more difficult times.
That's a great book. Favorite podcast or podcast episodes, any that have left a lasting impact on you?
Huberman Labs recently had Andrew Huberman had a podcast on alcohol, and I don't know if you've listened to
I
it,
haven't. No, but I
but
don't.
I'll
I'm
spoil
not
it.
a big.
0% physiologic benefit. So I think for a lot of people, especially where I grew up, like we need to really
Oh, it's resveratrol,
better
this, that.
define. It's one of those things where I think we really need to take a good look at alcohol and its impact on our overall health and physiology. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 10 or 20 years, alcohol is like cigarettes, where we're just like, I can't believe we consumed the volume that we did for so long because of how detrimental it is to our overall health. So that was a pretty powerful one.
Mm. And then the last one, we've hit a lot of health optimization, and I know you're pretty much really focused on the basics. But if there's one thing that someone looking in would be like, oh, that's the craziest or most out there Dr. Ryan Greene does to optimize his health and well-being, what would it be?
I recently had an experience with a plant medicine. It's not actually a plant. It's a type of medicine called 5-MeO DMT.
Mm.
um, or some people call it toad, some people call it bufo. There's going to be a lot of people who think I'm insane, but I will say it was the most powerful experience I've ever had in my entire life in terms of just helping me make sense of it all. So, um,
15 minutes or so? Is it long?
about
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, time didn't exist, so in human time, it was about 15 minutes. But yeah, I think that's something,
Would you do it again?
and I hope without a doubt,
Yeah.
without a doubt, but intentionally, right? It's not something that I've like it rips you wide open, man. You are vulnerable, you are raw. It's uh it's not something that I'm chasing after. It called to me. I felt like I needed to do it. I did it, and it was beyond comprehension or description. Um, so yeah,
Thank you for sharing. Uh, do you have a hard stop?
I do at
Yeah.
11. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Let's do this again. I
Cool.
think I had a note that I never asked you about like corporate wellness and stuff, but I would love to dive deeper
It's
into
all
some
good.
of the
Sure.
specifics, if you're up for it. Um,
Yeah, please, let's
it's
do it.
been a lot of fun, Dr. Ryan Greene. Where can people learn more about you and Monarch? And we'll leave it at that.
Yeah, sure. Sounds good. Monarch is monarchclubs.com. You can learn about all of our locations, current and upcoming. At Monarch Clubs on Instagram, and I'm at Dr. underscore Greene with an E at the end underscore DO. So if you are interested in anything I'm doing, we're doing, those are the places to find out.
Perfect. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.